Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a US political update concerning the scandal erupting about the relationship with Qatar in general, but the claim that there is a Qatari airbase being built up in Idaho in the US. Not quite like that, but we'll look at the details in a second. This is controversial, and it's partly controversial because it's in the context of a wider relationship that has been building with Qatar that appears to be one centered around Donald Trump's grifting of his position as president. So remember, his first international port of call was in the Middle East, where he visited Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and essentially made an awful lot of money on the back of it, along with his family making money through the World Liberty Foundation, and Steve Witkoff and his family making money from their positions in the US government. So they went there. Trump then committed to building a big golf course and hotel project that is worth an awful lot of money. So here we have Trump company strikes Qatari golf resorts deal in a sign. It's not holding back from foreign business. New Trump golf course, $5.5 billion beachside project announced for Qatar. And then we, of course, heard that Qatar offered Donald Trump a $400 million jet that's then going to cost more than that to bring it up to security standards fit for Air Force One. And then it will eventually go into the presidential library. So, arguably, Trump will just get this jet personally after use. Or, either way, it looks very dodgy that Qatar is gifting this thing effectively to Donald Trump straight up. Now, in light of all that, the single most controversial thing in American politics then happened, in my opinion. Like this, and I did a video on this separately. This has gone under the radar largely, but this is absolutely freaking outrageous. We've been calling for a security guarantee for Ukraine from the US and from allies for ages, and the US won't allow Ukraine to accede to NATO, which would be the cheapest, most effective deterrent for Russia, the cheapest, most effective security guarantee for Ukraine. Yet they won't do it. And then here, the United States gives a bilateral or unilateral, these are giving it themselves, a security guarantee to Qatar, of all places. Why are you giving an Article 5 like security guarantee to Qatar? Well, it's to defend Trump's own business interests, one can assume. It's the only thing that makes sense of this. So before we get on to the news from the last 24 hours, let's just remind ourselves that this security guarantee is absolutely incredible. So Sec 2 commitments, Section 2, I presume that means commitment. A, the United States shall regard any armed attack on the territory, sovereignty or critical infrastructure of the state of Qatar as a threat to the peace and security of the United States. B, in the event of such an attack, the United States shall take all lawful and appropriate measures, including diplomatic, economic, and if necessary, military, to defend the interests of the United States and of the state of Qatar and to restore peace and stability. In other words, if Qatar is invaded, the United States is obliged to defend the interests of the state of Qatar with military means if necessary. In other words, American sons and daughters can, potentially will be sent to Qatar to die on behalf of Trump golf course? I don't know. Tell me why American soldiers are being committed to defend the interests of Qatar. Tell me why that is happening. This is an Article 5 equivalent guarantee being given to Qatar, and it's absolutely outrageous. C, the Secretary of War, in coordination with the Secretary of State and the Director of National Intelligence, shall maintain joint contingency planning with the state of Qatar to ensure a rapid and coordinated response to any foreign aggression against the state of Qatar. The Secretary of State shall reaffirm this assurance to the state of Qatar and coordinate with allies and partners to ensure the complementary measures of support. It's absolutely incredible. So it seems, as you can see from this piece in red Regtech Times, selling America piece by piece. Trump allows Qatari base in Idaho after taking a $400 million jet and a golf deal. So the context here is really, really important. You've got a $400 million jet being given effectively to Trump. Trump committing to building a massive hotel and golf complex in Qatar. So all this money involved with Trump directly. This isn't the US state. This is Donald Trump directly as president getting this stuff done and sorted while he's president. And then giving Qatar a security guarantee equivalent to Article 5 of NATO. Absolutely incredible. And then yesterday, this is what Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, stated, sitting next to a Qatari dignitary.
Delivered, but as that's formally signed as well. And I'm also proud that today we're signing a letter of acceptance to build a Qatari Emiri Air Force facility at the Mountain Home Airbase in Idaho. The location will be host a contingent of Qatari F-15s and pilots to enhance our combined training, increase lethality, interoperability. It's just another example of our partnership. And I hope you know, Your Excellency, that you can count on us. We saw in Midnight Hammer, in those moments, when we needed support in the region, that Qatar was there without a doubt, without a blink. And that has meant a great deal. I've had the opportunity to see that firsthand operationally. I want to thank you. I want to thank your country for that, for hosting our troops. And it's wonderful to welcome you to the Pentagon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So there's this claim that a Qatari airbase is being set up in Idaho in the United States. So there's some clarification took place. Pete Hegseth had to come out because this was met with a right storm of indignation from an awful lot of people, particularly from those within MAGAsphere, right? This has been incredibly controversial. Important clarification, says Pete Hegseth. The US military has a long-standing partnership with Qatar, including today's announced cooperation with F-15 and Q-8 aircraft. However, to be clear, Qatar will not have their own base in the United States, nor anything like a base. We control the existing base like we do with all partners. But of course, he has stated that they are building a facility within that base. And some might argue, there were claims initially that, it's the first time any foreign nation has built a base inside the US. It's incredibly controversial. Imagine, allowing a Middle Eastern country to fly their planes from a base within the United States. And this is why people were getting up in arms. Okay, so it's a facility within a base, but it will be housing a whole bunch of Qatari F-15s, etc., etc. So this then resulted in a load of people going nuts, particularly people from in the MAGA information spaces. Laura Loomer wrote something like, was it 55 tweets on this yesterday, going absolutely nuts about this. Laura Loomer is a far-right influencer right in the middle of the White House, really. She's been responsible for the sacking of 6 Security Council members, I believe, or security advisors to the president, to the White House. She went in and said, no, these guys need to go, and then that was that. Political commentators of all stripes, says, was this a Newsweek piece, a Daily Beast piece? Political commentators of all stripes reacted with shock to the news. Typically steadfast Trump ally Laura Loomer posted on Twitter, never thought I'd see Republicans give terror financing Muslims and Qatar a military base on US soil. I don't think I'll be voting in 2026. This is where I draw the line. It's a really big claim. So I don't think I'll be voting in 2026. Losing Laura Loomer for voting in the midterm elections, this is a very public repudiation of the government's position. I cannot in good conscience make any excuses for the harbouring of jihadis, says Loomer. This is where I draw the line. So she sees this as inviting in Muslims, essentially, to have military facilities in the United States, and she is not a fan. We've got Tommy Vito. In 2017, Trump accused Qatar of being funders of terrorism. That's a quote from Trump. And now, 8 years later, he's allowing them to build a military facility in the United States. And the US is going to host a Qatari military base on US soil, he asked. In response to inquiries sent to the Office of Secretary of Defense by defense news outlet Defense One, the office said the establishment of an enduring location for Qatari F-15 aircraft at Mountain Home Air Force Base provides Qatar with strategic flexibility to operate and sustain their advanced fighter aircraft. It will enable combined training and opportunities between Qatar and the United States, fostering stronger defense partnerships and enhancing joint operational capabilities. The email also described the base as an enduring location for Qatari F-15 aircraft, although it did not shed additional light on the question of ownership or control of the base. Incredibly controversial. Now, this independent article says Secretary of War Pete Hegseth reacts after Laura Loomer shreds Qatari Air Force Base in the US. And as mentioned, she goes absolutely hammer and tongs at Pete Hegseth. This has gone down like a lead balloon with people within that information space, including, as the article says, former Trump advisor Steve Bannon and the Idaho Freedom Foundation. And they also condemned the plan. Quote, "There should never be a military base or a foreign power on the sacred soil of America," said Steve Bannon to Newsweek. The MAGA-friendly Idaho Freedom Foundation said on Twitter to unilaterally decide that Idaho will host a foreign nation's Air Force facility, which would house and train foreign nationals whose loyalties don't align with our own national and state interests, is a completely unacceptable overreach. Meanwhile, the Qatari embassy confirmed that the training facility is part of a 10-year commitment to enhance interoperability between the two nations' air forces. The embassy also noted that the project will create American jobs and support broader US-Qatari military operations. So, as you can imagine, this is incredibly controversial, but we need to understand it in the wider context of the relationship between Trump and Qatar. And I say Trump and Qatar, not the US and Qatar, Trump and Qatar. The last thing I'll say about this is Ted Cruz. Again, and one of these people like Marco Rubio, like JD Vance, who will say one thing and then when it comes to it, when the pressure is on them, will say something else. So JD Vance used to call Trump America's Nazi, and now he's brown-nosing Trump to the extreme. Marco Rubio, likewise. And here, Ted Cruz originally said, Antifa isn't organic, it's paid for. How much of Antifa is paid for by Qatar, Iran, China, or left-wing billionaires like George Soros? We're going to follow the money. And now he's on board with, Qatar setting up shop in Idaho. Quite incredible. So you got Trump, Ted Cruz, and obviously people like Laura Loomer, not fans of Qatar. And then, suddenly Qatar give him a big old plane. He gets to set up a golf course and a hotel. And then suddenly they're best of mates and they get a security guarantee equivalent of Article 5. It's absolutely outrageous. Let me know what you think. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.